thank Chairman Durman and the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee for inviting me to testify today. I'd like to emphasize at the outset that I'm testifying solely as the Chief Defense Counsel for the Military Commissions Defense Organization and not on behalf of any accused. Moreover, to be clear, the views that I am about to express do not reflect the views of the United States, the Department of Defense, or any Defense Department agency other than my own. My views do reflect, however, 32 years of service in the United States Marine Corps as a supply officer and as a judge advocate, including as a prosecutor and as a military judge. As you noted, I retire at the end of this year after 6.5 years as the Chief Defense Counsel for the Military Commissions. The title of this hearing is Closing Guantanamo, Ending 20 Years of Injustice. Because my authority is limited to oversight of the Military Commission's defense function and not on other detention operations, I will not address the issue of closing Guantanamo. However, I can and I will speak to ending 20 years of injustice. The only path to ending injustice in the military commissions, for the defendants, for the country, and above all, for the victims, is to bring these military commissions to as rapid a conclusion as possible. Notice I don't say as just a conclusion as possible. It is too late in the process for the current military commissions to do justice for anyone. The best that can be hoped, more than 20 years after the crimes were committed, is to bring this sordid chapter of American history to an end. And that end can only come through resolutions negotiated in good faith by the parties. Whatever the intentions, no one today can seriously argue that the military commissions in Guantanamo have been anything but a failed experiment. In their almost 20 years of existence, under 4 different presidents, the military commissions have produced one final conviction. To be sure, there have been 7 other convictions, but 3 were overturned in their entirety, and the other 4 have not completed the appeals process. The victims have waited 20 years in vain to see justice done. The 9/11 conspiracy was originally charged in 2008, almost 14 years ago, and there is no date set for trial. The fact that the military commissions have been unable to bring the men charged with the worst criminal act in United States history to trial 20 years after the fact is alone enough to indict the system as a failure. In fact, none of the active cases have a trial date set. These delays are a direct result of the government's decisions that have corrupted the process from the outset and have made legitimate convictions and fair sentences virtually impossible. The ultimate source of the commission's problem is their original sin, torture. The United States chose to secretly detain and torture the men it now seeks to punish. This torture impacts and undermines every aspect of these prosecutions. More specifically, the government's fear that the truth will become public is what has been the most destructive to a fair process. And the government has effectively refused even to disavow its use of torture by adopting morally indefensible positions, like arguing for the admissibility of torture-derived evidence in pretrial proceedings. As I discuss in my written testimony, there are a multitude of flagrant and potentially reversible legal violations infecting the Commission's cases that I don't have time to discuss here. But it is on the basis of this record, with these sorts of due process errors baked in, that federal appeals courts will decide whether the military commission's defendants received a fair trial and whether their sentences, including any death sentence, can be allowed to stand. Even if these proceedings were otherwise fair, which they manifestly have not been, or if the defendants had not been tortured cruelly by the United States, which they were, it is unconscionable that the government is gambling closure for the victims, along with extraordinary resources and endless delays in an attempt to obtain such fragile verdicts and dubious death sentences. The more humane route for all parties is negotiating resolutions that give the victims at least a modicum of justice and the closure they deserve now. I will conclude on a more optimistic note by assuring you that as long as the military commissions remain open, the military commissions defense organization's defense teams will continue to be the voice for justice at Guantanamo Bay. I thank you again for your invitation and for your time and attention.